The patients who has different type of cancer, they are coming and sharing their data. This is how we have experience with almost all kind of cancer.
How many people do you know of that have treated their cancer with deuterium depleted water at this point?
In Hungary, about 30,000 patients. In worldwide, should be about maybe 100,000, I don't know. But we know that thousands of patients alive because they consume DW, and several 10,000 patients live longer than it was expected just because the DW was part of the therapy.
Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chafee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. All right, hello everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Plant-Free MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chafee, and today I have a very special guest, a return guest, Dr. Gábor Somlyai, who is here to talk to us and give us some updates on deuterium, which I think is an absolutely fascinating topic and something that definitely deserves closer looks and more research. So, Gábor, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I'm pleased to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So how have you been?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, we can say we had a great progress, so it means then I feel better.
Good.
If you don't struggle so much and you see the path and you see that, okay, we are getting closer day by day, that help a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the advances you've had? So for people that haven't seen our previous episode, you're an expert in deuterium. Can you just give a brief rundown and explanation about deuterium and why this is important for our health?
Yeah, so the question is finally, how can we regulate the cell growth? What would be the target to cancer? What would be the way to find a real breakthrough and to find a real solution to solve the cancer problem? And the key issue is that, and the reason that the cancer drug development has failed, that the life is not organized on a molecular level. So even the big pharma, small pharma is going to find the molecules hoping that that can bind to the tyrosine kinase and that should be a good drug. We cannot see that. And so my concept was that there is a submolecular regulatory system, and that system based on the deuterium hydrogen ratio. The deuterium is a heavy hydrogen with a mass number 2 comparing with the hydrogen with a mass number 1. And due to the 100% mass difference, these two hydrogen behave differently in chemical reaction. It is called isotopic effect. This is one fact. The other fact that the ratio between the deuterium and hydrogen or hydrogen deuterium is 6,600 to 1, which means we can say very rare the deuterium, but explaining in millimole the deuterium level, it's about 12-13 millimole in human body, which means 6 times higher than the calcium, 10 times higher than magnesium. And even that, it wasn't investigate the possible role of deuterium in the living organism. So when I started my research, the question was whether the life during the billions of years may give any role of this heavy hydrogen. So I prepared deuterium depleted water and tested in tissue culture. And I found that in deuterium depleted media, we could stop and we could slow down the cell growth of cancer cell lines. And when we replaced the drinking water of mice, which had been transplanted with breast cancer, we could save the life of the mice, which suggests that the deuterium has some very important role, and we have a way to develop drugs. It means we have to reduce the deconcentration, because that way we hopefully can inhibit the cell growth and we can trigger the necrosis of the tumor. So that was the very beginning 30 years ago. For today, we can say the basic is that the cell membrane transport can increase the DH ratio, because when the growth hormone binds to the membrane and stimulate the sodium hydrogen antiport, that antiport will prefer to eliminate transport the hydrogen, and that can increase the DH ratio in the cell. And in the very first paper 30 years ago, we concluded that this is a signal for the cell to initiate the cell multiplication. But there is another source of the water in our body. This is the mitochondria, because when we eat the food and burn the food, the carbon dioxide and water, that metabolic water is deuterium depleted in a healthy cells. And the question is how depleted? It depends on what type of food we eat. Carbohydrate will produce water with 150 ppm, which is the normal deconcentration. But the more fat we have in our diet, the lower will be the deconcentration of the metabolic water. So in a healthy cells, the membrane transport activity and the mitochondria is balanced, because the membrane can increase the DH ratio, but the mitochondria can keep the DH ratio at a low level, producing deuterium depleted metabolic water. And the only common feature each cancer cells is the damaged mitochondria. So in the cancer cells, the mitochondria, no TCA cycle, no deuterium depleted metabolic water production, and in that type of cells very easily can lift up the DH ratio to the thresholds, which finally initiate the cell growth and go from G1 to S phase and multiply and multiply. And this is the way how finally the cells is regulated, and this is the reason that the cancer cells became cancer cells. So we are developing deuterium depleted drugs, and the simplest way is to replace the daily water intake with deuterium depleted water. And one of our last paper was published recently. We evaluated 55 cancer patients consuming DDLW and diagnosed with glioblastoma. The GBM is one of the worst type of cancer. Patients hopefully maybe can be operated, but within a couple of months they relapse, and the life expectancy is very short. So median survival time is about 12 months today. So in our study with 55 GBM cancer patients, we could prove that we increased up to 47 months the median survival time in the group of cancer patients when the DDLW consumption was combined with the radiotherapy, which suggests that how important, and we have to plan it and combine and figure out the best way of the combination of the commercial therapy and the DDLW. So this is was one of our last paper we published.
Oh, great. So, I mean, that's amazing. So for people that don't know about GBM, so it's glioblastoma, this is the most aggressive and most common primary brain cancer. Without treatment, it's about a 3-month life expectancy on average. And it's considered fatal. As soon as you get this diagnosis, you're considered to have a fatal disease. With chemo and radiation, but no surgery, it's around 8 months. With chemo, radiation, and surgery, it's about 15 to 18 months, and sometimes a little longer. But that's the published data at the moment. And so the fact that you can improve life expectancy when combined with radiotherapy by 47 months is massive. Was that with surgery and chemo and radiation, or was that just with radiation?
Sure. Everybody use the so-called STU protocol, which means operation, radiotherapy plus temozolomide. And that combination is used in Hungary also. Mm-hmm. And the question is always at what stage we can join and we can integrate the DDLW to the therapy. So most of the people, unfortunately, start the surgery, receive the radiotherapy, and maybe after that they find us and they start to consume. In that case, our median survival time is not as good as combining the DDLW with the radiotherapy. And regarding the mechanism is very important, because we know that the radiotherapy trigger radicals, and the DDLW consumption also trigger radicals in the cells. And that way we can very easily reach a very high level of radicals, which finally will trigger the necrosis and the apoptosis of the tumor cells. So it's very important to combine always the DDLW with the radiotherapy. It's a very good combination.
Yeah, I remember you saying that last time, where it was, the deuterium depleted water, the DDW, that Well, that was extremely helpful in and of itself, but when there wasn't enough inflammation, when there wasn't enough free radicals, that it actually couldn't kill the cancer cells as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So in a couple of cases, on several cases, we found that the DW wasn't so effective. And then it turned out that those people who are taking lots of antioxidant, vitamin C, E, A, or selenium, that was the reason that we couldn't see so good efficacy with DW. And it's again, people believe that the more alternative therapy they try, they believe the better, which is not true, because sometimes combining different alternative therapy can diminish the efficacy. So with DW, we strongly recommend do not combine it with high dose of antioxidant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's obviously good to know, because yeah, you're right. I mean, anybody with cancer is going to try to take a high dose vitamin C and everything in combination with those sorts of things. But 47 months is a massive improvement. Even 12 months is going to be a big improvement. Chemo and radiation is thought to improve life expectancy by a few months, maybe around 4 to 6 months. And surgery a bit longer, as long as you can get over 95% clearance. And so, we're talking about something that is extraordinarily aggressive. And so you're just adding in the deuterium depleted water, in this study has extended life more than on average they would get
any other.
So,
I got
many multiples of their life expectancy, which is absolutely fantastic. So that's been published recently, or you just finished that study?
It was. And so finally, this is the same what we published with lung cancer. For females, we can get over 100 months median survival time, and 45 for males. We had similar with breast cancer. We had similar with prostate cancer, and the question is clear: how can we even improve that type of efficacy? And this is the reason we need the drug registration. This is the reason we need to combine and figure out the best way with the existing therapy, because in several cases, of course, we see that the patients do not follow the right protocol. They quit earlier, or they can start very late stage to consume DW. So we are pretty sure that these numbers will be even better in the near future.
Oh, very good. Very good. So was that, I think you had some other research that came out recently as well, is that right?
Yeah, the other maybe is very important in the last year that, so as I mentioned, the mitochondria has a very important role, whether it can control the cell growth. And to prove that, we did an experiment that we changed the drinking water of the laying hens with 25 ppm DW, and we collected the eggs of these chicken, and then we separated the yolk with the white, and we add deuterium depleted yolk to the food of the mice, which had been transplanted again with cancer. And it was clear that when the mitochondria receive very, very deuterium depleted lipids that help the mice, they live longer. And that way we also were able to reduce the growth rate of the tumor in the mice. And we can go to the ketogenic diet. Why can be good a ketogenic diet for the cancer patients? Because the ketogenic diet means deuterium depletion, because eating fat food, meat with a high fat content, that will produce 118 ppm deuterium depleted water in the mitochondria. And this is a big game in the cell. The mitochondria producing something, the cytosol is synthesizing other molecules, and all these hormone ratio, because when the DH ratio is changing, then simultaneously thousands of gene expression will change, and that way the cells can harmonize all the process in the cell.
Yeah. Is it possible to tell like which genes they're turning on and the effects that those have? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, so what we tested over 200 cancer-related genes and over 500 kinase genes. And in that study, we used deuterium-depleted media, normal media, and 300 ppm deuterium-enriched media. And the first results was surprising, or maybe not surprising, that almost 80% of the gene expression changed when we changed the deconcentration.
Oh.
But more important, that 99% of the genes responded to the higher deconcentration, which means when I talk about that the membrane transport can increase the DH ratio, it means that is a message to hundreds of genes that their expression will increase. And if we see our numbers, that over 500 tyrosine kinase was tested, and 135 expression was increased more than 30%. And if we consider that the pharma going to find one molecule to inhibit one tyrosine kinase, and when we keep the D level low, it means we simultaneously inhibit hundreds of tyrosine kinase gene expression. And this is how we can be so effective. And this is the reason why the DW can be effective independently of the cancer type. And we can multiply the median survival time of these cancer patients.
Yeah, great. So, well, it's this is a subject that I think is so interesting. My background's in molecular and cellular biology in my undergraduate degree. So this is something that I think is really interesting from that perspective, because just looking at the different functions of the cell itself and the properties of the cell, and seeing what's going wrong. And you and Dr. Borosh, talked about how this is, again, this comes back to mitochondrial issues, comes back to damage to the mitochondria. This can cause huge problems for the cell, including in cancer. This is something that we've seen in psychiatry, in cancer biology, improving the mitochondrial health, and you improve the body's health. You stave off cancer. You help starve out cancer. And this is another really important piece in that puzzle, and one of the core underlying factors in mitochondrial health as well. Just because that heavy deuterium, the heavy hydrogen, ends up damaging the molecular structure of the membranes in the mitochondria. So this is something I think that deserves a lot more attention. And it obviously, like you said, it goes hand in hand with everything that we're doing from a diet perspective, because when you're on a ketogenic diet, like a carnivore diet, you're actually automatically lowering your deuterium levels in your body, and this is just a yet another reason why mitochondrial function improves. I mean, this is something we've seen in ketogenic diets in general, that after 3-4 months on a ketogenic diet, you end up having 4 times the number of mitochondria, and they're 4 times as effective. They work better. And so our tissues work better.
Do you know, the good point is that this year started a research, and our company is in a consortium, and the European Union supported 0.7 million euros the research with deuterium depletion. And the Würzburg University, Oxford University, and University at Lisbon is part of that consortium. So hopefully within a couple of months, these groups will publish new data. We provide the deuterium depleted water to this research, and we are communicating and sharing the data. So hopefully, and as we can see that now we have over 200 publications on a PubMed, which is working and publishing data with deuterium depletion. So it's a good sign, and we hope the number will increase, and we will see a clear picture about the efficacy and the mechanism of DDW.
Yeah. So what's the future for this sort of research now. Do you have other projects in the works at the moment?
So the primary aim is to get cancer drugs. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up, because this is the only way that that can be part of the therapy, and everybody can access to deuterium depletion. And I'm very sure about that. That will be a real breakthrough in cancer therapy. But we also saw the data that not only the cancer and the cell growth, but the metabolism also regulated by the deconcentration. And we published two papers, one with a rat study, where we could prove that the best deconcentration for the insulin signal system is between 125, 140 ppm. So even we tested the efficacy in a rat study at 20 ppm, 25 ppm, 75 ppm, not the lowest deconcentration reduced the best way the blood sugar level or diabetic rats. It was between 125, 140 ppm. And this is the range where what my grandfather had, who ate the bacon and didn't eat any sugar. So the population 60, 100 years ago lived a life with a much lower average deconcentration than the society today. So of course, the other focus is to involve deuterium depletion to treat metabolic diseases. And after the rat study, we run a phase 2 clinical study with 30 patients. They were diabetic or close to the diabetes, impaired glucose tolerance. And we could prove that the fasting glucose level was decreased within 3 months. And the funny thing was that after 60 days, we had a peak in the fasting glucose level. And the reason was that the enrollment to the study started in October, and 60 days later, it was Christmas time.
Yeah.
So that a little bit disturb our study, but it was significant. And the other, we could see that within 3 months, 30% of the enrolled patients, we reduced the insulin resistance. And I suppose if the study lasts for half a year, even more people, we could reduce the insulin resistance just by bringing the D level to the optimal deconcentration, which was 133 ppm, and that was 147 before they started to consume the DW with 105 ppm. So the question is, how can we proceed with the drug registration, and when will the oncology society and the whole society accept these data?
Yeah. How is that going? Are you getting any interest from oncology circles?
We have interest from investors. So it took 30 years, but now we see that more and more company coming to us, and they see, okay, we should check it out. And I do believe that we will be funded within a short period of time, which means we can finance the clinical trials. And after that, within 2 years, we should get at least a temporary approval. We are going to do with the glioblastoma just because the median survival time is short.
Yeah.
The life expectancy is very short, bad. So if we can prove in that type of cancer, we can prove with any kind of cancer the efficacy of DW.
Yeah, that's definitely a good model. Yeah, because it is so aggressive, and if there's anyone to help, it's them, because they really don't have much to go on. The best treatments we have are pretty dire, and so anything we can do for them is a good thing. So you're saying that the optimal parts per million of deuterium in our bodies is about 120 to 125. Is that right?
100 for, if you talk about metabolism, I would say 125, 140, 100, 135. Okay. If we talk about cancer, the dose is completely different, because the aim is to reduce regularly the D level of the body. That way we can challenging all the cells, and in that challenge, the healthy cells can adapt and adjust everything to the lowering D level, but we need to trigger the apoptosis of cancer cells. And if we do it day by day, month by month, that way we can trigger them.
Okay. So what would people normally, so in a with a ketogenic carnivore diet approach, what range of deuterium would you normally stay in? Would it be in that 125, 135 range, or where would you be?
Yeah, if somebody is on a ketogenic diet, I guess it should be about 130 ppm.
Okay.
The D level, just because the diet, depending on how strict they follow the ketogenic diet, can be different. So for healthy people to keep the D level in the best range, we recommend to consume water with 125 ppm or 105 ppm. And depending on, so we can talk about healthy people, we recommend that. Those who are healthy and they would like to consume DW just to reduce the incidence of cancer, the chance to get cancer, we recommend a 3-4 months cure, consuming 105 ppm, or maybe 2 months, 85 ppm. That way we can reduce the incidence of cancer. And those who are suffering cancer, they should consume it for a long period of time till we get a complete regression. And even after that, we recommend to repeat a cure 4 months just to prevent the relapse of cancer.
Okay. And what would people's deuterium levels be if they're just eating a standard carbohydrate and sugar filled diet like we do in the West?
So when we run this clinical study with that 30 patients, then we measure the D concentration of the blood. And that range was 147, 150. Okay. So everybody was on the top, and nobody was following the ketogenic diet. So those, we recommend a 105 ppm. That way they can reduce the concentration with 20 ppm or 15 ppm.
Okay. Yeah, and were they with the 105 ppm deuterium depleted water, was that able to get down to the 120, 125 level, or how low did they go?
So we have a kinetic, and we are just going to publish a paper how we can modify and how can we follow the D level when we exhale the vapor and we precipitate. So the kinetic, the equilibrium will be about 125, 130 ppm if somebody is consuming DDW with 105 ppm. And just because the food and other liquid will not be lower, that will be the equilibrium, which is enough and which is good for healthy people.
Yeah. And so you were saying in this group that it lowered blood sugar and insulin resistance and things like that. Do you know the mechanism of that? Is it just improving mitochondrial function, or what do you think was behind that better glucose tolerance?
So we have done a loading test with athletes, after we took a blood samples and loading test again and taking a sample. So what we found after they consumed 44 days DW with 105 ppm, and we saw that the lactic acid appeared much later during the loading test. And we can go back to the mitochondria. The glucose uptake was much better, and the TCA cycle worked much more properly. And that was the reason that the lactic acid appeared much later than comparing to the day 0 when they just made the loading test but not consuming DW. And when we checked the rat study, in that rat study, we could check the protein of GLUT4. The GLUT4 protein is in the cytosol, and that's responsible to pick up the glucose from the blood. And when we tested the GLUT4 concentration in the muscle membrane, we found that in diabetic rats. So in the diabetic rats, the highest was the GLUT4 concentration, the rat consuming 125 ppm. And it means that the insulin signal system, which stimulate the translocation of the GLUT4 from the cytosol to the membrane, was much more properly at the 125 ppm than at a lower. So the best was 125 ppm, and the lowest was at 150 ppm. And that should be the reason that in everybody, if the D level is lower, the insulin signal system getting better, and that is the reason that 30% of the in the clinical trial we could reduce the insulin resistance. So I'm pretty sure that we did not change the insulin concentration of the diabetic patients in the blood, but the efficacy of the insulin signal system is getting better when the D level is at 125, 130 ppm. And this is what we need to avoid the diabetes and all these complications, which is going with the high blood sugar level.
Yeah, and is one of the major plagues in the world at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, just quickly, can you go over again just how exactly, like, having deuterium depleted water and lowering your deuterium levels specifically helps in fighting cancer cells?
So may I offer the book which was published in English? Because I collected the data over 30 years, talking with cancer patients, and to figure out what should be the best for the cancer patients. And it's not easy to share all the knowledge within 5 minutes or 20 minutes, but this is the reason I shared it in the book. So the key issue is to start with a deconcentration, which could be 105 ppm, or in most serious cases at 85 ppm. And we recommend to consume it for typically 1 to 3 months, depending on the staging and depending on the cancer type. But after a while, will not be any changes in the deconcentration in the body. But the cells are sensitive for the changing D level. So if no any changing in D level, then the cells which still survive the first couple of months adapting to that level, and they start to grow again. So this is the reason we recommend change with 20 ppm after a while, and then keep it again for 1 to 3 months, and then change it with other 20 ppm. So these 105, 85, 65, 45, and 25 ppm, these are the products on the market which are available. And it is also important when to start, when to stop the consumption. For example, somebody is diagnosed with breast cancer and no operation because it's inoperable. We recommend to start to consume DW, and the tumor became operable. Each tumor is much easier to operate if the patients had a couple of weeks to consume DW before the operation. We always recommend to combine with the radiotherapy, as we talk about. But for example, if somebody breast cancer, very good prognosis, and they are recommended to chemotherapy, I say that do the chemotherapy, don't use the DW. But when they stop the radiotherapy, continue with the therapy with DW, and that way we extend the therapy of the patients, and then we can reduce the relapse again. We do not recommend to consume DW for childhood leukemia just after they are treated. Hopefully, the efficacy is pretty good with leukemia, and we suggest to continue the therapy with DW when they finish the chemotherapy. This is the same with the non-Hodgkin lymphoma. When the chemotherapy alone is very effective, we do not waste the potential of DW to combining with the commercial therapy. But when they got a good results because the therapy is good, then we can extend the therapy, and that way we can move forward. So there are, with the hormone therapy, with prostate cancer, we have hundreds of cancer patients with prostate cancer. So one of them is, there is a prostatectomy, and they are very happy that they are tumor-free. But unfortunately, they have a very, very big chance that the PSA level will increase. So we recommend after that, consume DW, make a 4 6 months cure, has a break, next year repeat it. And that way we can prevent the relapse of the cancer. So hopefully one day that will be part of the oncotherapy.
Yeah. And then, so at a molecular level, is this, how is this changing things so that the cancer cells die off again? It's stopping the cell cycle, is that right? So it's stopping the progression in cell cycles so that they halt and they can't go through mitosis, is that right?
No, we can cause apoptosis or necrosis
Because
we can follow with MRI CT that the tumor size is getting smaller and smaller, so shrinkage. And yeah, when somebody start to consume DW, they feel it when we can initiate the tumor necrosis, because fever, drowsiness, sleepiness, dark urine can be, which is due to the big necrotizing of the tumor. So, and there is a strong inflammatory reaction when the tumor starts to necrotize. The patients feel that. Yeah. Even at the very beginning, in the first 2-3 months, the CT MRI can show a bigger tumor. And I always say, don't worry. This is not because the more cancer cells we have. This is because the necrotized tumor, the immune system is going there and try to eliminate the necrotized part of the tumor. So lung cancer patients definitely coughing out. The tumor sometimes is coming out.
Oh, wow. Gross. Yeah, well, it says, yeah, being swollen and inflamed, I suppose, as well. So, and so this is something that you've trialed on many different cancers, is that right?
What do you mean?
Have you trialed this with multiple different cancers? Obviously, you've done it with GBM, lung cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer. So how many different cancers have you tried this with and found to be effective?
50, 60. 50,
oh, wow.
60.
Yeah.
So the patients who has different type of cancer, they are coming and sharing their data. This is how we have experience with almost all kind of cancer.
Yeah. So how are you getting the word out to people? I mean, obviously this isn't, an accepted treatment modality as of yet. So how are you recruiting patients for your trials, and how are people hearing about this treatment then coming to you for help?
So if we got investors and the company will be funded, it means we will hire a CRO, we put together all the documentation, we will go and apply for ethical approval, and we will choose the clinical sites and applying a protocol. So we finalize a protocol, and then those people who requirement, they can, so we will enrollment criteria, exclusion criteria, and if they fit with the enrollment criteria, they can be part of the clinical trials. And that will last, I guess, about 18 months. And hopefully at the end, we will evaluate the data, and then we can go further and get a new drug application at the EMA of the FDA. So that is a normal way to register cancer drug, and we must follow that way, no any other way.
Yeah. And then, so how many people do you know of that have treated their cancer with deuterium depleted water at this point?
If I think the numbers, how much water we have sold, I guess in Hungary, about 30,000 patients has consumed DW.
Yeah, wow.
In worldwide should be about maybe 100,000, I don't know. So we used up about 200, 300 tons deuterium depleted water a year. And we have detailed data about almost 3,000 patients. Several patients didn't share the knowledge and the data, so I didn't know anything about them. But we know that thousands of patients alive because they consume DW, and several 10,000 patients live longer than it was expected just because the DW was part of the therapy.
Yeah, wow. So you said you had clinical data on 3,000 patients, is that right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, wow.
so there are prospective and retrospective. So the patients, the paper we published from was a prospective study with prostate cancer. That was a double-blind randomized clinical trial. But all the other is a retrospective study. So everybody followed the conventional therapy plus consuming DW, and if they share the knowledge and the data, we can evaluate, and that way we can share the new data what we can publish with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's massive, and you're getting, it's one thing for people to be using this and helping themselves in the community, but people just say, well, that's just anecdotal and fine. But having thousands of patients and having clinical data on that, I mean, that's quite significant. 3,000 patients is actually, quite a large number at this point.
Yeah. So our database reflect the distribution of the cancer types, which is typical worldwide. It means we have several hundred breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer, and colorectal cancer, because that's cover most of the over 60% of the cancer types. And as the rare type of cancer, we have less. But for example, maybe it's interesting for you, we published the spinal associated glioma. This is a very rare disease. And we had a 11-year-old girl. She was diagnosed more than 20 years ago, and no any therapy possible to treat that type of disease. And she was consuming DW, and then she finished the university and she lives. Unfortunately, she had some pulmonary embolism, but without any conventional therapy, because there was any chance to treat her, we could get long survival, and even we could prove a great regression of that type of very rare disease. So
yeah,
we had a couple of other rare disease, which chronic lymphocytic leukemia, it's a rare disease. And we could prove that somebody who has a huge tumor on the neck and the lion was double, after starting the W, everything goes to the right direction, and no tumor on the neck, and he didn't need to receive any chemotherapy for 15 years. So we could balance it and keep it in a normal range, everything.
Yeah, wow. That's amazing. The girl with the you said it was a spinal cord astrocytoma?
Yeah, that's what spinal astrocytic glioma we published. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, you can't operate on that. I mean, you can't, you can't really remove the spinal cord to to take that out. It's not really something you can do. So that's usually a very bad outcome. So being able to live, well, much longer than, I mean, decade or more, longer than expected is pretty amazing. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. And
the regression was clear.
Yeah, which is amazing. And did it completely regress? Did it go into remission, or was it still just lingering on but just smaller?
she was followed for up to 10 years. After that, she didn't went back,
Oh
but
yeah.
she was fine. She was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Oh,
In
that's
the
cool.
paper, you may can see that it was in the neck, and the MRI was made every year or every half year, and we could
Mhm.
follow that. So maybe there was a 5 centimeter reduction in the size of
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And well, that's amazing. So what is the cost of the deuterium depleted water? Like how much would it cost for someone to, like you said, go on for 2 or 3 months to as a just a cleansing protocol
Mhm.
to get to sort of try to weed out any little precancerous cells?
Yeah. So if in Hungary, I know these numbers
Mhm.
roughly. It's about
Would you know in
uh,
euros or?
um, so we are selling 1.5 liter bottles, and one bottle in Hungary is about 7-8 euros.
Okay.
It means about 200 euros per month,
Hmm.
uh, uh, the cost.
Hmm.
And for healthy people, we recommend 3-4 months every year, every second year. It depends on what is the aim to do that. But for cancer patients, we recommend 85, 65, and the price unfortunately goes up because the lower the D level, most difficult to separate the heavy water molecules, and it requires huge amount of energy to
Hmm.
separate this H2O from the D2O. But anyway, it should goes up to 600, 800 euros per month, the cost,
Hmm.
which we can say can be very high. Those who cannot afford that. On the other hand, can be very cheap if you're comparing with the cost of the drug, which is available and registered. And don't talk about the efficacy between the conventional and the DW. But we always say all the data what we have, that because this is a combination of the conventional therapy and DW. So I never believe that we have to replace the DW with, or the conventional therapy with DW. We have to
Hmm.
use out all the
Yeah.
possibilities, all the therapies, and all kind of uh, techniques which can help the people to keep them alive.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, with something like cancer, you really have to just throw the kitchen sink at it and try to use every available method.
Yeah.
And so, this is something just like diet, nutrition, something that we use as an adjunct to treatment. So, certainly, I certainly don't recommend that people, stop standard treatment. I think there's absolutely a role for that, especially many cancers are quite treatable. Like you're saying, different leukemias are very treatable with standard treatments. So this would be, that would be not a great idea to sort of give those up, but this can certainly be used as an adjunct to improve your outcomes, and why not? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not gonna cause harm insofar as I know. Having lower deuterium water, it seems to be a positive, and isn't going to cause any harm anyway.
And the best way we could reduce the deaths caused by cancer, if all the patients who are in remission, they were treated and they are in remission, they would consume DW for 3-4 months every year. That way we could prevent the relapse. Because the bad news that after the therapy is finished, they are waiting and waiting every year, going back to the control, worrying about whether it's came back or not. Couple of several cancer has a very big chance to
Mhm.
come back, but that way we could prevent the relapse. We have data with all 204 cancer patients,
Mhm.
and we lost 13 within over 1,000 cumulative follow-up time, and 2 of them died not because cancer, and 8 of them died because they were in remission. They consumed the DW, and then they forget the DW, and then I heard that they died. The average
Mhm.
time was 4.1 years after they stopped consuming DW. But
Yeah.
those 156 patients who regularly come back, they never relapsed.
Yeah.
And that would be the way to, and that would be the most important, that to integrate to the therapy, the DW, those who are operated, tumor-free, don't forget to do something just to prevent cancer.
Yeah. And well, that's amazing. And so that was what you would recommend then, is 1.5 liters a day for 3-4 months. Could you drink more than that as long as it was deuterium
We
depleted?
recommend to replace all the daily water intake. So
Oh,
if
daily water.
they need more, drink more. Don't
Yeah. Right.
drink any other liquids that period of time.
Yeah. Okay. So, and what would does I understand that water in different areas has different amounts of deuterium. Is that correct? Based on where you are, is that correct?
The veterinary treatment, we use 25 ppm. We do not dosage, so we replace the daily normal drinking water with a cancer drug for veterinary use. They drink it, and 50% we can cure the dogs and cats.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, so like normal tap water, like normal drinking water, how much deuterium would be in that, or does it change where you go?
Uh, uh, what do you mean?
So like just normal drinking water that you'd have just in the tap. How much deuterium is in that? How many ppm?
Yeah, yeah. It means it's 150 ppm,
150. Yeah.
and depending on where you live.
Yeah.
In Australia, you are close to the equator area, so it's 150. In Hungary, it's about 148. If you go to Norway or Sweden, it could be about 140.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And does it matter if is it groundwater or rainwater or anything like that? Does that change?
So, for example, in Hungary, it depends the movement of the clouds. The clouds, when first close to the north and coming down, then it has a lower deconcentration when it's springtime coming from south, because the heavy water easily can fall out from the clouds. But anyway, so during that, so this is the way of the separation. And on the other hand, a given region, the water, the drinking water, D level is, we could say it's stable, not any real big fluctuation.
Okay.
So,
All right. Interesting. All right. I've sort of thought about, giving it a try. If someone were to try this just for their own health, as a preventative sort of thing, do you notice, I assume that you sort of do your own protocol as well. Do you feel any different? Do you feel any differences in your health when you go on like a 3-month of 105 ppm deuterium depleted water?
yeah, people feel better.
Yeah.
They are more active, they sleep better. I continuously drinking 105, not only 105 I share with normal water, and 105, it's about 125 ppm, the D level now. I feel good. When I play basketball, I had to stop it last year because my hip didn't like it, too much running. So I could run a lot, and no any lack of, no, it was fine.
Yeah. All right, good. Well, Gabriel, that was fantastic. It's great to see all the new data that's coming
Thank
out
you.
showing that this, I mean, you're tripling the life expectancy of GBM patients and massively improving the life expectancy of other cancer patients. So I mean, you're doing an amazing job and you're doing amazing work, and hopefully others see this, and people who are suffering from cancer or have friends with cancer, this is something to really look into. So I would encourage you all to look into this, to follow Gabor's work online, and read his papers, read his book, see our original video and interview together, as well as an interview with a colleague of yours, Dr. Laszlo Boros, who is also a fellow Hungarian. He was a professor of medicine at UCLA. Is now back studying deuterium, teaching about deuterium full-time in Hungary as well. So anyone who has cancer, anyone who has someone they know with cancer, something to send them on to and to look more into. Yeah. So Gabor,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Would you be able to tell us how people can find you and how they can find more of your work, websites, books, if they want to order deuterium water, where can they do that as well?
The knowledge is shared in the book Deuterium Depletion. It is available on the Amazon. Our product called Preventa, so people can order it on the www.preventa.hu website. And our company is hyd.hu, the company website. But more important, I always say, go to the PubMed, search for deuterium depleted water, and check not only my paper and our papers, but all the other scientists who has published the results, making research with DW, and that makes clear that how far we have proceeded and how hopefully close we are to solve the cancer problem.
Yeah, good. All right, well, I'll put links for that in the description, and then hopefully people can go and do some research themselves. Go check out PubMed. Go take a look at some of those papers, and see what they think. Dr. Somlyai, so thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Anton. Thank you.